Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today with a quick Borderlands 3 discussion video. Today we're getting into the strange yet fascinating situation of Borderlands 3's success. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because of a recent statistic that came out. When you look at the Borderlands 3 pre-launch hype cycle, it seemed like every single month there was a new controversy. Just to name a few, we had the MrMattyPlays debacle, we also had Randy Pitchford allegations, and on top of that, the Epic Game Store exclusivity. The list really went on. But yet, despite all of these problems propping up, we had Borderlands 3 become the fastest selling game in 2K history. Now, I don't come from the perspective of someone who wants a series or a game to fail. I don't work that way. I don't function that way. Heck, especially in the case of Borderlands, I played 1 pre-sequel and 2 all of its DLC all over just to get ready for Borderlands 3. I was supremely excited for this game, and I believe the last time I played all the games in a franchise before the next one came out was probably actually Fallout with Fallout 4. So I was on the side of the fence that I had met some of the developers at Gearbox, I knew how passionate they were, and I wanted to see this game succeed, and I'm glad it did. But it brought about an interesting talking point, one that made me really start to ponder the impact of discussions we have in the industry, especially ones like a lot of the issues I mentioned in passing in the beginning, where these were substantial controversies that really you felt could have driven away consumers one way or another. But I think it just goes to show, when push comes to shove, someone standing in your Walmart, Best Buy, GameStop, they have some cash in hand, they have a game that they're interested in, and that game may have been Borderlands 3, that overall their interest in a game will always override the problems at hand. Now, that's not to say that there aren't consumers who did pass up on Borderlands 3 and said, you know what, these issues are a little too much, but we also have to take into account a couple of factors. Number one, this is the first entry in the franchise in so long, and it has been long anticipated. Not many people were like me and really liked Battleborn, so a lot of people maybe haven't cared about anything Gearbox related outside of Borderlands, and so seeing Borderlands come back is really exciting. The other factor could be the co-op element that I like to call it, which is pretty much you go into a store, you may be getting one purchase, but that can quickly turn into two when a buddy is alongside you and they go, you know what, I'll get this game, I'll play it with you. The co-op element is very strong in sales. We usually see these types of games do well, and considering it's such a vacant market, there's quite a void when it comes to co-op driven experiences, especially like Borderlands 3, where it's free of microtransactions at the moment, which is pretty crazy and commendable, I will say that, where I think some people were ready to support this game. Now, I also find it crazy that this game flew right off the shelves because of reviews. Outlets were carefully selected, as I noted in last week's video about the review situation in modern gaming that I think needs a bit of a change, and even those carefully selected reviews, some of them were quite critical of Borderlands 3, mainly on the tech side, and some writing/story gripes, which I personally do share. So there was, I wouldn't say red flags, I think that's a little drastic, but there were warning signs along the whole path, but yet, at the end of the day, Borderlands 3 became the fastest selling game in 2K history, and think of every franchise they have between sports games, which are annualized and super popular, and on top of that, you have BioShock. There are so many amazing big series that they have underneath their thumb, and Borderlands 3 was the fastest selling. Absolutely insane. And so what does this go to show when we've had so much conversation about these types of controversies in the games industry? I think it boils down to something that myself and Carrick of Angry Centaur Gaming, ACG as some of you may know him, that we say on the podcast a lot. I think that, one, gaming is a lot bigger than anyone imagines, and that also means that not as many people as we think are involved in this YouTube space communicating about games. It's growing every day, but it's really not on that level where so many people are informed about all of the issues going on with Borderlands 3. And that brings me to point number 2, which is, should those problems necessarily push you away from the game? At the end of the day, when you're standing there, money in your pocket, ready to play something, is the personal enjoyment you could experience with Borderlands 3 worth dying on the sword of saying, I hate the Epic Game Store, for example? Or how dare 2K get rid of MrMattyPlays' channel? And at the end of the day, some people may separate it and go, I want to support the passionate devs at Gearbox, but not the folks at 2K. It's a really interesting situation because I've never seen a game hit so many roadblocks along the way and still manage to find some success, let alone the biggest success in a giant company's history. That type of stuff is crazy. So now that 2K has a lot of extra cash rolling around, hopefully they can bring back the Darkness series. Just a little personal request from yours truly, because the Darkness 2 ended on a cliffhanger and I'd like to see a third one. But in all seriousness, I know this might be a bit of a grim conversation to have because it's sort of facing reality that sometimes these conversations that we have don't have the humongous impact, because I think it's sort of like what I've always said with the Epic Game Store, where my hate for the Epic Game Store never overrode my love for gaming. And I think that's what we're seeing with a lot of these controversies, where Borderlands 3, despite its issues in the terms of launch cycle marketing, did not lose sales. I think what matters is the game. Is the game fun? Does the game work? And while I've had a bit of a buggy experience with Borderlands 3, in my last 10 hours or so, it's really picked up. It's been a lot better. Even though I'm not a huge fan of the story and writing, it's just been fun to play with friends, which is all I was really hoping for. And I think that's what people value. Can I go in, shoot stuff with my friends, and just chill? And Borderlands 3 certainly provides that and more if you're caring to look for it. So I think that's where the conversation has sort of led us. And I thought it was interesting to have because I also wonder if it's an outlier. If there were any other game series out there, would they have failed, or did Borderlands 3 persevere by namesake and of course product quality alone? While I don't think it's as good as Borderlands 2, I think that Borderlands 3 is still quite a good game. But that'll do it for me, folks. I just wanted to share some thoughts that have been spinning around in my head since the stat came out about Borderlands 3 being the fastest selling game in 2K history. And of course, saying anything critical about 2K is a little terrifying at times because of recent happenings with them, but I still think this is just a fair conversation to have where we're not hoping for any negativity, but more so just discussing the success of a company, if anything. So I'd love to hear from all of you in the comments down below. What do you think about the sales of Borderlands 3? Fire away, ladies and gentlemen. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.